It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to this industry webinar. We have students as attendees, the first year folks, the second year folks. A warm welcome to all the students. We have faculty members across all our functional areas as attendees on this webinar. A warm welcome to all my esteemed colleagues. We have the director himself as a panelist on this webinar. Thank you for sparing the time, sir. Very warm welcome to you, sir. And most of all, we have our esteemed speaker, our alum, Mr. Sujit Bawa. A very warm welcome to you, Sujit. It's an absolute honor and a privilege to have you here. For those of you who would not know about Sujit, a brief introduction about Sujit. Sujit did his MBA from 4 in the year 2003. After that, he joined Asian Paints, worked over there for 2 years. Post that, ever since 2005, he has been working with Hindustan Unilever Limited. He's currently the general manager over there, general manager with Unilever. In fact, more specifically, general manager integration. And, recently, HUL had bought GSK Consumer Healthcare Business for a whooping amount of 30,000 crore plus INR. And in this HUL GSK merger, our alum Sujit is the guy who is actually spearheading the integration of GSK Consumer Healthcare into HUL. So Sujit has been a key person who has led the integration of brands like Boost, Maltova, Horlicks, Viva, etc. into HUL. And it goes without saying that integration of these operations, the employees, the sales force, the inventories, etc. is definitely challenging. And COVID-19 makes it even more challenging, right? And then recently, when we heard a webinar by Mr. Sanjeev Mehta, the CEO of HUL, even he was speaking about how nicely the integration is being done during the COVID-19 scenario also. And then we thought that probably we should reach out to Sujit and for a talk on all these things. And Sujit suggested a theme of rebooting the FMCG business post COVID-19. So we are thankful for Sujit that he was able to spare time, come up with this particular theme.
Special thank you and welcome to Sujit for agreeing to be with us this afternoon to talk to our students and faculty. It is a pleasure twice in the sense that Sujit is our alumnus. And having an alumnus who's been doing extremely well in the corporate world is a pleasure to welcome him or her to come and address our students. And the second is that the contribution, the experiences or the thoughts shared by Sujit would be of immense value to our students who are doing the summer internship project online in this current time. And I'm sure the input given by Sujit would be taken in right earnest by our students and the faculty as well. This is the time where we have been making endeavors to invite people from the corporate world to share their views on the current situation with our students. And we want our students to do a real good job of working from home and having a better attention and interaction with the faculty in this summer internship as compared to the earlier times. So we have set a kind of a target for our students and the faculty supervisor that the work that is finished, the SIP, the summer internship project work, is valuable by a potential stakeholder. Therefore, it should not be treated as just a routine bigger requirement to fulfill the PGDM or MBA requirement, but to add value to the society in terms of coming up with some insight as to how do we understand the situation and how do we deal with the situation and how certain situations which have been known, how they have handled this and give a perspective to this. So I'll take more time and I would like to invite Sujit with a warm welcome to come and take the floor or take the screen and talk to our students. Sujit, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Das, for a very nice introduction and a welcome. And thank you to Professor Rajneesh and Vivek Chakrabarty for reaching out to me and asking me to do this. It's always a pleasure going back to your alma mater. As I was telling Professor that I would have loved to do this in person, but I think one of the things COVID is teaching us is that we need to make the best of the circumstances we have. So, albeit virtually, a big hello to all the students who have joined in. Uh, my name is Sujit Bawa, and now I will start the presentation. We will quickly glance in terms of the history of pandemics and how they've reshaped the world. The seniors on the group would certainly appreciate this more than me for sure, but it was fascinating for me to put down some content around it, and it also allowed me to read a little bit more around what and how the world has been impacted with the history of pandemics. And there is some story and silver lining on all of that, which I will talk to you about today. I will not talk about China, where did the COVID began, what is happening today. There is a lot of sensationalism around COVID in China. I won't be getting into that. I will be talking to you about how life after COVID in China is now coming back up. Because I think as students of marketing and as responsible citizens, it's our job to understand how the world is shaping after the pandemic. China is not fully out of it, but they are well and truly getting better. So I will share some insights what I've picked up today in terms of how China is rewiring post-COVID. Closer home, then we'll do the microscope around India. My perspective around what I believe is the impact on India, its people, its communities, and the economy. And then we will dive into FMCG, the sector I am part of. I will share some insights with you in terms of what is going on in the market. And then I will conclude the presentation before we take the Q&As in terms of my prognosis into the future, in terms of what are the trends which are here to stay. So that's the broad agenda I'd like to cover. Moving on, as I said, the history books teach us that humankind has not been fortunate enough when it comes to deathly viruses and diseases. I say this with full humility that there have been pandemics in the past, and it is reasonable to say that there will be pandemics in the future as well. I'm not going to talk about the specific details on each of the pandemics, but I think it's important for us to take a pause and just reflect at how the history of humankind has been shaped so far. So starting from smallpox, which as per disputed estimates has killed more than 50 million people across the world. Spanish flu, which by the way, if people are history buffs, you must go online and search about Spanish flu. Interestingly, bulk of the Spanish flu casualties actually came to India. So that's the nearest history we have of pandemics for us. Unfortunately, when I saw this chart, I was also very humbled to see that South Asia and Asia in general has been at the brute force of all the viruses in the past. A lot of them, particularly swine flu, SARS, the origins have been South Asia or Southeast Asia, if I may say. It's not a moment of pride, but it's a moment of reflection on what the overall community needs to look at better. However, the purpose here is not to go down and keep our necks down and be morose about it. I'm reminded by one of the finest strivers, I would say, in history, who's told us that the greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall. I truly believe in this time of COVID, all of us as people, communities, and humankind and businesses, we will come out of winning. And that's what I keep telling my team. That's what we all in HUL at least start looking at every day, that we will overcome this as a community very soon. In terms of COVID, while everybody knows the origins in Wuhan in China, I will just try and give you a perspective of where we stand today as a world. What started in China now is perhaps almost everywhere in the world. 214 countries as of today morning's update now have one or more COVID case reported. What is interesting for us as students of economics as well, that between China, US, and Europe, we now have more than 50% and more of the world GDP under a massive impact. Why is this important for us as India? Because we are a large importer and exporter. We rely a lot on raw materials from each of these countries. Any impact as large as this pandemic on these three big clusters is sure to have an impact on a strengthening economy like India and the larger world. What is interesting to see is that not only from a population perspective, but from a GDP perspective, more than 50% of the world GDP is now under heightened impact of the pandemic. But there is a sliver of hope, and that's what I said, that I will continue to mix and match facts which are more promising for the future. One of the BCG research very interestingly talks about what life in China after Wuhan looks like. Now look at some of the numbers. 99% of the business is now looking at resumption. 85% of coal consumption, not something China should be proud of, but also tells you to the extent economic activity is coming back. China, by the way, is a very large consumer of coal. But it tells us how the economy activity is now coming back, with China almost at 85% recovery. 50% recovery of metro passengers, which means people have started stepping out a lot. And in terms of the sectors which we now see a hit in India also, 90% recovery of property transactions is now coming through in China. The same impact, not only from a supply side, but from a demand side, is also visible. Where if you look at restaurant transactions, people now stepping out a little bit more comfortably and confidently is now zooming. If you look at apparels, 70% recovery on average daily sales rate. If you look at beauty business, completely out of home is now looking at a 7x growth after COVID. China anyways is a very large connected economy, with e-commerce being the mainstay shopping platform for its people. But on top of that high adoption of e-commerce, China itself is seeing a 2x growth in terms of sales promotions. So this tells you that China took about 100 days to come out of the pandemic. Even if the countries take a little bit longer given their preparation, this is how the economy can and will bounce back. However, what is important to understand, these pandemics leave a very large impact on people and communities in general. And again, from BCG, very interesting numbers here, where people say that while I'm stepping out, I'm good to be back outdoors. People are still very, very concerned about COVID-19 and whether it may come back anytime again. 93% are still avoiding public spaces. 87% have changed their lifestyles. And the reason I'm talking about this is because this is a very important theme in what I will also talk to you about when we take a sharper microscope around FMCG in India. Because as marketeers, as students of marketing, we need to watch out for the trends which will shape beyond the pandemic. And I'll touch base a little bit about it. 77% of Chinese people actually believe there will be a recession. Yeah. 43% actually, on the positive side, think where they live is safer than the virus than the rest of the world, particularly in the US. 58% believe that the worst of the virus is still over. Unfortunately, it is not. However, you will see how consumers start responding to external cues a little bit more. As an aside point, one of the big things you will see all organizations talking about today is mental well-being. Because one of the things we expect taking a huge toll on people is their personal mental, not physical, but mental well-being. With all the pressures, with all the negative news around, it becomes extremely critical to take care of ourselves. Now let's switch track. From China, I take you now to our country, India. And what I'll try and give you is what I've assimilated from published material, what I believe are unique insights we must all be taking note of. First, what is important for us to understand that the impact of COVID in India or anywhere across the world has to be looked at from two contexts. There will be an external context to the impact, and then there will be a domestic context to the impact. What do I mean by that? As I mentioned in the previous chart, you have three mega economies of the world, or mega clusters of the world, which is Europe, US, and China, under deep impact of COVID right now. There will be weakening of global demand. There will be supply chain disruptions. there will be commodity prices which will fluctuate. There will be risk off in terms of global financial shocks. And people who follow stock markets closely, if you follow the Dow every day, you will realize what the economy is going through right now. As far as domestic is concerned, you will have people reducing discretionary spending because the focus right now will be to protect your families and serve the basic and essential needs for them. Going out will not happen, watching movies will not happen. You will not go out, therefore, shopping and retail and lifestyle and travel will take a nosedive. We also do see in domestic, especially in India, with a large dependence on migrant workforce supporting us every day in our manufacturing activities, with people now moving and finding it extremely tough to go back to their homes. I personally believe labor intensive sectors in India will see this shock for some more time because people will take time to come back. In terms of travel restrictions, again, we are all rising up to this new work from home scenario. Everybody is still learning to get used to seeing a single screen every day, but this is going to be the way of the world for some time. And in some cases, this is going to be how the world will be much after the pandemic is gone. Just another broad number sense, because I believe as management graduates, we shouldn't take information just on paper. We should also deep dive into the numbers behind every story. What I tried to do here is basically, and this is again my assessment, that if you look at the big sectors on which our country's GDP depends, you have financial services, real estate, and professional services, a good 1/4 of the GDP of the country. You have about 20% coming from trade, transformation, transport, communication, and tourism. You have a good 18% coming from manufacturing, a 14% contribution coming from agri, forest, and fishing, and then you have public administration and defense and others. Logically speaking, industries which are more capital and labor intensive will see a heightened impact from COVID in the medium term. Until the time the demand and the people come back, the shocks will still be there for some time. And if you look at the industries, the one I would want to call out, manufacturing sector certainly is going to see a very, very big impact on two fronts. First, they rely a lot of their raw material demand from countries which are severely impacted. Number two, it's a labor intensive enterprise. And if you don't have people supporting you in that effort, you will have a big problem. Third, pandemic has also created a short-term demand shock. So if you don't have demand also for a lot of your products, you have a three-way pressure coming to you from rising prices, low productivity, and low demand. And these are the factors which every industry now needs to acknowledge. But if you look at the demand and supply side, so one I talked about external and domestic, also remember that for FMCG and India economy, we need to look at the demand side shock and the impact of the pandemic and the supply side shock and impact of the pandemic. And I'll explain that a little bit more. But if you look at this data from Nielsen, again, I found this chart incredibly interesting. In the last month versus the next 6 months, look at how changes have happened in terms of cash flow, in terms of outdoor eatings and essentials, in terms of non-essential items being major part of the company portfolio. Now look at this number. What are we saying? Every organization is right now trying to focus back into what is absolute essential for them from a consumer standpoint. And I'll give you an example, which again is a public news right now. I'm sure most of us shop or would have shopped or would have heard about Big Basket. I heard a webinar from one of the founders of Big Basket. He interestingly told us a fascinating statistics. And I'm sure some of us who have shopped from Big Basket are not liking the experience because the queues are very, very long. You don't get slots. You don't get SKUs. And the number he shared was amazing. He actually said on any given day, Big Basket has about more than 30,000 SKUs listed on the website. 30,000. This is pre-COVID. But after COVID, that number has actually come down to 1/4 or lesser in some of the cities. And the reason for that is very simple. And the reason I'm giving that example here is to tell you the demand and the supply side shock. What is the supply side shock? There are lots of big baskets vendors who provide him fresh fruits and vegetables who are finding it difficult to get his produce to his factories. From a demand side, given that the consumer is asking for 100 SKUs, is getting 20, there is a lot of revenue loss he's seeing. From a supply side, the other loss he's seeing is people who deliver from big basket. If your migrant workforce has left the main cities and gone back to their villages, who's going to service the demand? So you will understand that pandemics like COVID have left the economy and businesses in terms of headwinds from all these fronts. And because you have a top line problem, you will have cash flow challenges. Because you'll have cash flow challenges, you'll find it difficult to pay back. I'm sorry, was there a question? Okay. So that's the broad perspective in terms of demand and supply. I will shift gears now, and if I pause for a second and just roll back over the last 15 minutes, understanding the pandemic more from the world lens, life in China after the pandemic, understanding the economic variables which will get impacted in India because of COVID. Now I shift gear, which is talking about how the consumer sector in India, and particularly the FMCG sector, will now see dramatic shifts, not even in the midterm, but in the long term. I think the broad, let's say, framework I could put up is the following. The consumer behavior will shift from left to right in the following ways. First will be that people will start really focusing on health-minded buying. They will reactivate health management. So a lot of people will now go back to eating right, exercising, looking at mental well-being. Pantry, which is basically what we shop for our fridges every day, will become and will see a big change. And one of the things I tell the trainees in our organization, that the best way for you to learn about COVID is actually to watch your own fridge. In case your wife or your mother is right now doing the tough job of getting the vegetables and fruits for you, just look at the fridge and how it is transforming today. That to me is the best way you can understand the impact of COVID on FMCG. I can give you my personal example. Now, given that I'm spending a lot more time at home, my wife is actually on a sabbatical and she's pursuing writing her first book right now. One of the things she's not liking at all is that she's seeing me a lot the entire day. And one of the, let's say, downsides of me being home is that then I start going down for these treat for myself trips, as I call it, which is to go to the nearest this mobile van which the society has kept now, to either buy a packet of Oreo, either buy a packet of chips, because that is the treat I give myself every day. But it is fascinating to see how the fridges have changed. And you will see pantry now in a big way shaping on how people will shop. And the big point I'll land in the next chart, you'll get the sense on this. Quarantines, work from home is not going to go anywhere in the near term. As the statistics in India are now visible to us, and that's my own personal view, the battle is long. I stay in Bombay, and I'm sure everybody is seeing the number of cases spiraling in the city here. I do believe that the Bombay battle and the country's battle is not yet over. It's still a long way to go, which means preparing for the quarantine way of workings and living, preparing for work, staying at home for longer period of time, also increases and changes our shopper behavior a lot. There is going to be restricted living. No longer can we just roam around in malls without any purpose. While this will show an impact on online shopping, but shopping itself, I believe, as a sector, will undergo a big change. And then returning to a new normal, which is the right part, the rightest part of the chart, will be very, very different. We don't know how schools will open. We don't know how our kids will be taught. We don't know how offices will come back. we don't know how the supply chain will undergo a permanent shift. A lot will change in the market after pandemic also. So I hope I've been able to give you a perspective in terms of from an FMCG context, from a consumer behavior point of view. Health, livelihood, and well-being will become a big one. Focus on pantry and focus on fresh will be a big trend for FMCG companies to pick up. Looking at restricted living and understanding life in a restricted living will also become a new normal for us. And the social animals all of us are, how does it change our behavior towards communities and societies at large after COVID? Will be an interesting one to see. What it means for businesses is that if you followed the insights I just spoke of in the last chart, what will it mean for businesses also that the rules of the game will change? And in my view, the way the change will happen is the following. The focus from a consumer on quality and efficacy will increase multifold. Consumers will go back to the farm and would like to get products which are more fresh and quality. Technology will play a very, very big role as we go forward. And if you look at this, these will be the accelerators which will shape the way businesses will follow through. Our first job is actually that we need to keep people safe and healthy. So HUL as an organization will do whatever it takes to keep our communities healthy and safe. We need to work very closely with our partners because they are also facing an unprecedented impact on business. We need to do everything for our community. So if some of you are on Twitter, you can go and check a post from our CEO Sanjeev Mehta, where he talks about Horlicks, and that's the place I'll use an example of where I've worked. That Horlicks right now has actually supplemented its formulation with zinc, which is actually known to be a very, very good immunity builder. And we have distributed 1.5 lakh jars of Horlicks to hospitals yesterday. That is a little step this organization has taken to help our community. The fourth point is our duty to our consumers. We got to make sure we deliver them Lifebuoy hand wash, sanitizers. We got to deliver everything they ask for, and we need to try hard to do that. The last is our institutions, which is hospitals, NGOs, whatever little more we can as corporates and every corporate. This is now the time to do the right things and do more things for the society at large. So I think there is a very big role the corporates also have to play. In summary, before we take Q&A, I personally believe the pandemic will leave a profound impact on people's society in more ways than one. The recovery, and let me explain this, what I mean by a W or a U. In economics, people talk about a U curve of picking up demand. So U is basically you see demand dropping, flattening, and picking up. I personally believe, so there is still split verdict whether it is going to be a U or a W. I believe it is a W, which basically means you'll have shock in, shock out over the next 12 to 15 months. Why? Because there are certain industries which will take time to recover fully. I am hoping to God there is not a second resurface of this virus in countries where it has gone off. But if there is, you will see a slide again, and then we will come back up properly. So I personally believe it will be a W, not a U, but happy to be proven wrong, and we'll all see it together. Businesses would need to rewire for the new world quickly, and I hope my previous charts have made sense to you why we need to do that. There will be immediate and a long-term shift in what, how, and where we buy. What, as I said, farm fresh, food of quality will see a big surge. How we buy, in terms of how do we pantry load in our houses, essentials versus non-essentials will see a change. And where we buy, online versus community versus going to your nearby Kirana. I personally think anybody's bet right now, but a lot of things will change right now. And the last, this is the time for everybody as citizens and as corporates to do more for our communities. And I personally believe brands which have a stronger purpose of servicing our society and consumers will last. Thank you very much. Again, thank you to Dr. Das and Professor Rajneesh and Vivek for giving me this amazing opportunity to address you all. These are tough times, but as my daughter keeps telling me every day, Papa, this so shall pass. And I truly believe that the human resilience is way, way, way stronger than the virus, and we'll hopefully come out of it very soon. Here's wishing all of you good health, stay safe, and happy to take questions now, sir.
Hi, Sujit. Thank you so very much for this insightful talk and the presentation. This is definitely an extremely useful talk. In fact, a couple of months down the line, when placements kick off, it goes without saying that 90% of the placement questions this time around is going to be around COVID-19, impact of COVID-19, how it is shaping industry, so on and so forth. And what you have told the students and, of course, all of us is definitely very, very useful. So let us have the questions now. My request to the students as well as, in fact, to all the attendees, including to the faculty members, is that if they have a question, they need to type in the Q&A box. You will not be able to speak even if you try unmuting. So you need to type in the questions in the Q&A box over there, and we will take it up from there. So, for example, one question which has already come during the course of the presentation is, and this is a question, Sujit, from Professor Payal Kapoor. So what she says is that, Sujit, thanks for sharing our positivity, much needed. And the question that she's asking is that 2003 SARS, probably you will also be able to see Sujit somewhere on the right side.
Yes, I can, sir. I can.
2003 SARS contributed to the birth of China e-commerce. Do you see that happening in India also with COVID?
Okay, thank you, Pal, for the question. I actually think e-commerce is actually a mainstay currently for India already. I think what you will see, Pal, now is further acceleration in the format. I think you will see a lot more consumers moving their shopping missions online. The problem was never about acceleration of e-commerce from a platform perspective. The challenge was penetration in terms of number of people adopting that platform. I believe now with this pandemic, especially in India, you will see acceleration. So I would reword it differently. I don't think it is going to be born or reborn. I personally think you will see much, much faster acceleration on anything online right now in India.
So cool, Sujit, that helps definitely. So let's go to the other question. I'm talking about a question by Ayushi Vora because the previous question happens to be a concurrence with your viewpoint. So Ayushi Vora, hello, sir. What are your opinions on how will the FMCG sector gear up in the dynamic environment in this tough time? Would you like to have a stab at it?
Yeah. So thank you for the question, Ayushi. I hope some of it you got a sense on how the organization and the sector at large should do. But if I were to summarize this bit again for you, I think from the environment perspective, Payal, what's going to happen for FMCG is in the medium term, a lot of the effort first will go into managing the supply side properly. What do I mean by that? I truly believe that there is no drop in demand right now. There is drop in demand in certain portfolios, but large part consumer demand is largely there. The challenge is actually to get the products to the consumers, and right from raw materials to manufacturing to fulfillment. So in my view, if you remember the chart I said, there is a supply side and then there is a demand side shock. So from the environment perspective, I think the companies and all of us will need to come out of the supply shock first. Demand, as I said, will be felt as a drop in categories which were more frill, but will continue to surge categories which are more essentials. And I'm hoping after 4th of May, when the PM announces some change in the lockdown approach, especially for the green zones today, I personally believe you will see some uptick on activity coming back.
That helps. The next question, this is a long question by Jack Krishnan.
Yeah.
In a summary, what I thought was that what he's asking is that how do you see the B2B marketing strategies changing for companies, especially involved in derived demand? And then he has given a long example. Fundamentally, B2B marketing strategy, how they would change, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'm actually, just give me a couple of seconds, sir. I'm trying to read his question.
Please.
It's a longish one, so it's important for me to understand the context a bit better. Just give me a second, please. Okay, so Jay, thank you for the question. I am not an expert on B2B marketing, and particularly in the sectors cement, iron, and raw materials you've called out, but I'll give you some first principles for you to look at. I'm not sure it'll answer your question fully, but I'll still attempt it. I think what's important is from a B2B angle, and I'll keep using the same words again so that you understand at a concept level what I'm trying to say also. The three sectors you called out, Jay, is basically all very heavy capital and labor intensive sectors, which is cement, iron, and any raw material. The challenge of the pandemic currently for heavy capital intensive and labor intensive sectors will be huge asset base and low manufacturing. Low manufacturing because of poor demand of poor availability of raw materials, or low capacity because of lack of people or the lockdown. If the government has allowed the lockdown in a factory in Punjab today, you can't do anything. For a company in the B2B space, I think the first job will be to work with the government and authorities to try and make sure in the right, safe way, bring their factories up and about as quickly as possible. Because you need first the manufacturing hub to be sorted for your B2B to start. I personally believe marketing as a concept in B2B right now is not going to be relevant. What will be relevant is demand fulfillment. So for any B2B client, I would go to you if you are confident in giving me and fulfilling the demand I have asked for. So marketing in B2B will now have a very different meaning. It would no longer be, in my view, about fancy advertising, fancy communication. It will be brass tacks about how much you can supply at this stage. So I think from a revenue generation point, if I am in any of these industries you have spoken of, my first job will be to bring my people back safely and bring my plants back up for manufacturing. I think that will be my big job to do, because as I'll keep saying this, I personally don't believe there is a demand side shock in India right now.
Good. So the next question, Sujit, there are actually two questions over there. I think second part of the question is about changing in spending patterns of the consumer, which you have already spoken about. The first question is probably how will FMCG companies target the online channel?
Yeah.
How will FMCG companies use the online channel post or during COVID? If you could comment, please.
Yeah. So Chehak asked that question, right, sir?
Chehak Mehta asked that question.
Yeah, Chehak Mehta. Okay. So thank you for the question, Chehak. I'll actually put this question differently. I actually think FMCG companies no longer need to target online shoppers. I think the online shoppers are themselves going to come on the format. You need advertising to tell consumers why do they need to do something. Pandemic has taught the world why they need to go online. Pandemic has taught the world why they need to look at fresh and hygiene. So a COVID virus today has opened up a lot of alternate ways of conducting business. So in my view, actually, FMCG companies need to work harder to make sure whatever the consumer is asking for is supplied. The game is no longer going to be about advertising. The game is going to be about fulfilling the demand I'm asking. I give you an example, Chehak, of Big Basket. Now, no matter what, have you seen a Big Basket ad in the last 2 months? The answer is no. Because why would I advertise a Big Basket when I know every consumer is going to go and shop online, and the first name which will pop up will be Big Basket. So I'm actually not seeing any Big Basket ad in the last 8-10 weeks of lockdown. Rightfully so. because I need to put every incremental rupee of my investment today in getting more people for delivery, in getting more SKUs for delivery, and only then I will get business. So I believe more than advertising, companies will need to equip themselves better from an infrastructure point of view to handle the demand or the surge in demand one will see on the online formats.
Thanks, Sujit. The next question goes by the student called Varun Jain.
Yeah.
He wants to know how the movement of migrant laborers back to their native place impact the industries. And then he continues, will the W-shaped recovery be impacted more because of it?
Okay. Thanks, Varun, for the question. I tend to agree with you in parts. I think, look, I'm no expert in economy here, but I personally believe the migrant labor problem is here to stay for some time. That's my personal view. I don't think people are going to come back in a rush. Secondly, if the borders are going to be closed, it's not going to be easy for people to come back. So I personally believe the migrant labor issue is not going anywhere soon, number one. Number two, certainly, as you rightly pointed out, the W-shaped recovery is one of the reasons is precisely that you will see waves of people coming back now. Therefore, you will see one W part of the W and the other part of the W slowly in the next 6 to 9 months, because it's going to take time. So I think you've spotted it correctly.
Thanks, Sujit. Sujit, the next question, in fact, I'm trying to club two questions in the same question.
Sure.
There's this person called Sujit. He says that, as a marketing student, which market segment you want us to focus for a good career? He's coming directly to the point, which helps an MBA person is supposed to be doing.
So I didn't catch the name, sir.
The name of the person is Sujit.
Sujit. Okay. So namesake here. Very good. So Sujit, my apologies, Sujit. I would not be able to answer this question, my friend. The reason I won't be able to do that because it's not right for me to comment on something I don't know a lot of. It's anybody's guess right now. What sectors, what is going to come up. I think your focus as a student of marketing today should be on the three things. First, I hope all the esteemed professors are making sure that this is the time actually to look at outside in. What do I mean by that? That pandemics like this, when we are all at home, and I was taking this example with one of my trainees in HUL today, Harvard Business Learning, and I'm sure Dr. Das and Professor Rajneesh would know it better than me. The courses which Harvard Business Learning was offering as much as about $1,000 about 6 months back. Those courses are running right now for almost free. If there was ever a time for students of marketing to upskill themselves for challenges in the future, I would actually go down to saying that if you're not spending almost a third of your productive week right now learning from outside, I think you're missing something right now. Because what is going on is there are things which are happening around the world which if we don't watch, we will not become better and stronger in the future. That would be my first advice to you. The second advice will be that once you start reading up, you will also realize what are the sectoral shifts which will happen and what are the tectonic shifts which will happen. Needless to say, e-commerce will, in my view, will become bigger. There are sectors like Farm Fresh, delivery partnerships will again see a huge surge right now, in my view. But that's my view again. So I would say, don't worry about jobs. I think the longer term strength of this economy is there. Worry about skilling yourself. And if you can spend some time in this environment to learn 2 or 3 things more than what the books will teach you today, I think you would have done yourself a great favor. Yeah. So that's how I'll put it, sir.
Okay, good. So we have Meenal Seth is asking the question again. Yes. And what she says is that how do we see the shift in FMCG consumption patterns? But then she qualifies it because you've already been speaking about FMCG consumption patterns, other than moving towards healthier options.
Yeah. So I think, thank you, Meenal, for the question. I think, Meenal, what's going to happen is what the government has actually called essential items. I think in the near term, what you will see is a lot of buying focus will shift towards essential items like tea, beverages, soaps, staples. You will see these categories looking at an upsurge in the near term. In the long term, I personally believe home health and hygiene categories will really see an upsurge. Particularly, I'll give an example of floor cleaners. A category before COVID, we didn't even know which are the brands. But I think now everybody in the house knows which are the floor cleaners which come to our house. So I think hygiene categories, health and hygiene categories will really, really upsurge. The categories which is anybody's bet right now will face a challenge, in my view, will be discretionary spend categories. Let me give you an example of discretionary spend categories. For example, if you go to any e-commerce platform today, you will find a lot of the stuff in FMCG also, which is more good to have. Let me take an easier example: protein bars. I personally feel that segment was in an upsurge because a lot of people were working out, a lot of people were exercising outside, etc., etc., and it was quick on-the-go food. When you're pretty much in your houses, your buying patterns towards bars will change big time. That's my view. So I think, in summary, Meenal, to your question, essential items, big upsurge. Home health and hygiene products, continued upsurge in the long term. Discretionary spend categories will face some bit of a challenge in the near term.
Thanks, Sujit. Sujit, there's a next question from Professor Basant Potnuru, and he has a more generic question. Do you see the recruitments for marketing executives? Do you see the recruitment for marketing executives would be on the rise after the lockdown ends and easing begins?
Good evening, Professor. Look, again, I don't know, because in terms of marketing executives also, it's a very broad term. I'll tell you why I say that. Because I'm saying from a marketing, if your interpretation was more the salespeople, I personally think there will be a medium-term shock, but I don't know. Again, as I said, this is not my industry domain. But my view will be that if the demand starts coming back up, you will see a short-term pressure. I don't know if it will stay, because if manufacturing comes up, if supply comes up, if everything comes back on, I don't know whether this trend will stay for long or not. But that's my personal view. As I said, this is not my area of expertise.
Can I interrupt here, Rajneesh ji?
Yes, Dr. Das, please go ahead.
See, I didn't want to interrupt, but I thought it's better to, because Mr. Sujit is a better place to give a response to this. The previous question by Meenal on FMCG consumption pattern, right? Now, the question can be better answered or sort of framed in the way that because of the new situation, online transaction will happen, the e-commerce business will go up. So consumers will be ordering more FMCG products online. So now Sujit, coming from FMCG HUL, can answer it better. So how would the consumer buying pattern undergo a change? Would they still be brand sensitive, or would they still go by the category of items that they want to buy on e-commerce?
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Das, for the question. I'll tell you how I'll answer this. I think consumers will look for the need spaces first. Second, the brands which talk the most on purpose will then get picked up. I'll tell you what I mean by that. First thing which will undergo a change in the shopping basket online today. I'll again go back to an example of surface cleaners. I personally believe surface cleaners is not amongst the top categories today on e-commerce. But if you look at the data of last 7 weeks of shopping basket, surface cleaners now is amongst the top categories bought in e-commerce today, at least on Grofers or on Swiggy. The reason for that is, A, you are not getting it outside in the Kiryana. Second, you have realized that this is an important category to be there in the house. Yeah. What will happen after this? Do I buy a Lysol, or do I buy a Dettol, or do I buy a Harpic? Will depend on what these brands through advertising talk to consumers about. If I like what I hear from a brand purpose point of view from Dettol, I will pick Dettol. If I like something from Harpic, I will pick Harpic. So there will be two stages. New categories will enter the basket. New brands will enter the basket depending on how the brands are available and do a job of communication.
Yeah, so therefore, it is important for FMCG companies to really keep track of how the category shift is happening. And
Absolutely.
if you're in that category, then if your choice of promoting it's a category A and category B, and traditionally you want to promote category B, but there is an increased shift in buying category A, so the company should shift away from promoting category B to category A, such that they are able to capture more market share out of category A, which is on a upswing. So
I think
FMCG
the big
companies.
theme, I think the big theme I'll pick up from what you said, Dr. Das, would be that I think the big one will be to be aware of what is going on outside from a trend point of view. And I couldn't agree more with you that every company should right now be very closely monitoring and attached to how consumers are behaving, uh, um, and pick up what the businesses then need to do better.
That's correct, because there's also some discussion which you have already, in a way, you have also shared, is that there's a change in consumer perception on prioritizing the items that they want to purchase.
Correct.
Now, if this changed priority of consumer makes a shift in category purchase for a particular company, the company should better be aware of this. Otherwise, your competition may take advantage of this.
An extremely useful talk and the kind of perspective that you brought in Q&A also. Fantastic. And given the fact that folks will be headed for placement, I'm sure they'll find these things very useful.